the teachers here at Intrepid English. As an English learner, I'm sure you have learned many phrasal verbs to include in your informal conversations in English. So what is a phrasal verb? A phrasal verb consists of a root verb, such as go, put, or set, and an adverb or preposition, such as away, on, or out. Phrasal verbs are idiomatic, which means that the phrasal verb has a different meaning to the individual words within the phrase. In this podcast, I'll explain the meaning of 8 common phrasal verbs containing the verb cut. But first, there's some vocabulary. Simultaneously, adverb, at the same time. Reduce, verb, make smaller or less in amount, degree, or size. Intake, noun, an amount of food, air, or another substance taken into the body. Exclude, verb, deny someone access to a place, group, or privilege. The first phrasal verb is cut across. There are 3 different meanings to cut across. The first is to go around an area of land to save time. For example, I cut across the field because I was running late. The second meaning is to pass through or across something. For example, a bridge cuts around the track a few meters ahead. The third meaning is to affect 2 or more groups simultaneously. For example, these arguments cut across class boundaries and divided the nation. The second phrasal verb is cut back. There are 3 meanings to the phrasal verb cut back. The first is to reduce the amount of money that you spend. For example, we need to cut back on our spending. The second is to start doing or using less of something. For example, I have smoked for 20 years, but I'm trying to cut back. The third meaning is to remove parts of a plant or tree to reduce its size, also known as pruning. The example sentence here is, I had to cut back several branches of my neighbor's tree that were blocking the path. The third phrasal verb is cut down. Now there are 5 ways that we can use cut down. The first is to reduce the amount of something. For example, the new windows should help cut down on the traffic noise. The second usage is to start eating, drinking, or smoking less of something. For example, you need to cut down your alcohol intake and exercise more if you want to get healthy. The next meaning is to make a piece of writing shorter. For example, my psychology professor told me that this piece of work needs to be cut down by 100 words. The next meaning is to cut through the main part of a tree. For example, we've tried to stop them from cutting down the rainforest. And finally, the last meaning is when a weapon, usually a sword, cuts people down and kills them. For example, during the 100 Years' War, thousands of men were cut down on the battlefield. The fourth phrasal verb is cut in. This is another versatile phrasal verb. It has 4 main uses. The first is to interrupt someone who is speaking. For example, the debate was respectful, apart from the moments when Paul cut in with the occasional sarcastic reply. The second use is to drive past a vehicle and move quickly in front of them. For example, the red car cut in front of me, officer. The next meaning is when a piece of equipment starts working automatically. For example, the air conditioning cuts in when the temperature goes above 20 degrees Celsius. And the final use for this phrasal verb is to allow someone to have part of the profits of something. For example, after persuading them for a full hour, they finally let me cut in on the deal. The next phrasal verb is cut into. While this phrasal verb is very common, it only has two main meanings. The first is to reduce the amount of something. For example, the long working hours really cut into my leisure time. Whilst the second is to interrupt an activity or process. For example, a loud bang on the door cut into his thoughts. The next phrasal verb is cut off. Now there are many meanings to the phrasal verb cut off. Here are 5 of them. Number 1 is to remove something by cutting it. For example, I decided to cut off my long hair and dye it purple. The second is to stop something from going somewhere. For example, the police cut off the burglar's escape route. Number 3 is to make a place difficult or impossible to enter. For example, the town was completely cut off for 4 days because of flooding. The fourth usage is to prevent someone from leaving a place. For example, he was secluded and cut off from the outside world. And the final use is to refuse to allow someone to get your money. For example, her grandfather cut her off before he died. Here's a little bonus fact for you. If you're in a bar and you've drank too much, the bartender can refuse to serve you, thereby cutting you off. For example, you've had too much to drink. I will have to cut you off. The next phrasal verb is cut out. Now this phrasal verb has 9 common meanings, but I'm only going to talk about a few of them. The first is to remove something from a larger piece of something. For example, I cut out this newspaper article for you because I know you like that celebrity. The second meaning is to remove parts from something such as a piece of writing. For example, they've cut out 6 scenes from my script. I can't believe it. The next meaning is to stop eating or doing something, usually for health reasons. For example, I've cut out sugar from my diet. Oh, are those cookies? And the last meaning I'm going to speak about is to stop doing something that someone finds annoying. For example, you're chewing too loudly. Cut it out. Now the final phrasal verb is cut through. There are 2 meanings to this phrasal verb. The first is to go through an area rather than go around it. For example, he decided to cut through the forest, but he ended up getting lost. The second meaning is to move quickly and smoothly through something. For example, the German striker cut through the Spanish defense and scored a goal. Well, I hope you've learned a lot about phrasal verbs. I'm Tom, one of the teachers here at Intrepid English, and thank you for listening to this podcast.